Good evening and welcome to the Real Truth channel. As you know, we have impeccable sources here, from embassy staff to military personnel to aid workers and independent journalists. What we will be doing is having a Patreon channel where we'll be going absolutely in depth and putting dates, times, places on absolutely everything to do with the Ukraine Russia war, so that you can go to this channel if you wish to subscribe. If not, I'll carry on making videos here, but there'll be really in-depth discussions on exactly what has happened. They'll be full of facts and figures that you can have at your fingertips should you then ever need to go and debate anybody. Or also, just if you want to find out exactly what's happened and what's been going on. As I say, there'll be lots of links and sources in those videos, and it will be your go-to guide, basically, for the Russia-Ukraine war and any other wars that are being fought. And there's one or two at the moment. What we want to get into now, though, is the first week of the Ukraine-Russia counter-offensive that is going on. So we've had a dam blown up. Let's start there, shall we? What we've had is the Turkish government saying that they should have an independent investigation. And the whole idea was the Turkish government would have one of their representatives, Russia would have one of theirs, and Ukraine would have one of theirs, plus UN inspectors going in to find out once and for all who actually blew up the dam. Now, you would think, if you're a fair and sensible person who isn't brainwashed by the MSM, you would actually think that this would be a good idea. If you were the people who didn't do it, you'd want the other side to be proven to be the monsters that each side is claiming that they are. This has not, however, been the case. You would definitely also want to be vindicated as the people, and then you could take the moral high ground and use it for marvellous PR purposes. Russia have agreed to this with alacrity straight away. The Ukrainians, if you go and speak to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, have not. They've totally refused to have anything to do with it whatsoever and say that it's just pandering to the Russians. It seems a bit odd, if you ask me. What we've also had in the conflict is loads of attacks by Ukraine and a furious set of phone calls between the Ukrainian Defense Ministry and the NATO, and the US Pentagon, in which the US are insisting that the Ukrainians carry on with this counter-offensive, and the Ukrainians are literally begging for more and more supplies, and that they can't carry on with this. Now, many people have surmised, and quite correctly, that the massive build-up on NATO troops in Poland and also in the Czech Republic is a prelude to something much bigger in this counteroffensive. It is entirely obvious from the first week of the counteroffensive that this cannot be won by Ukraine on their own. It's absolutely impossible. They haven't even breached the first line of Russian defences. They've taken some ground, maybe 100 metres here, 100 metres there, but they've not taken one single town, not one single city, and have suffered appalling losses in the first week. So we're going to quickly go through them, and as you know, our sources are very, very good. People were telling you there was only hundreds of Russians and thousands of Russians were dying in Bakhmut when they weren't, and anybody who's followed the TikTok channel that we had up would know this. They were also saying that Ukraine were winning and they were destroying Russians 8-1. This is a totally different type of war. We've said before, it is not 3-1 you lose attackers. It is literally a drones and missiles war. It is not a tank war. It is not a man war. And it is not an aircraft carrier war. As one Kinzhal missile into the flight deck, you're not flying any planes anywhere. It is all about air defences. It's about missiles, and it's about the ability to have the best artillery. This is a modern war. It's not like any of the ones we fought before, including the one that we fought in the Falklands. And this, compared to the Falklands is a cakewalk compared to the savagery and the death toll and the amount of horror that you are able to see on Twitter and other places. So let's get into how well Russia and Ukraine have done. Well, Russia have lost, and I don't care what either side says. I know my sources are absolutely impeccable, and we'll carry on as we normally do. Russia have lost around about 640 men and around 30 tanks. They've also lost 102 armoured personnel vehicles, or APVs as people call them. They haven't lost any planes. They've lost 4,000 drones because they're launching more drones than the Ukrainians by a significant number. And they've lost 2 ammo depots. They have, however, with those drones, hit 585 times as far as the numbers that I've had come in. What we also have to remember is that the CNN and the State Department have also said there is significant losses on the Ukrainian side. Well, significant doesn't really cover it. 1/5 of their counter-offensive force has gone. I was reliably informed that 42,000 men were made available for this counter-offensive. And indeed, we've had Ukrainian units now refusing to go back in because their losses have been so heavy. So in the first week of the war, we've heard about the Russian losses. Now let's have a look at the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have lost over 7,000 men. They have lost over 100 tanks. 7 of them have been Leopards and quite a few Bradleys. They have lost 572 armoured personnel vehicles. They have lost 2 planes out of the sky, and another 4 were smashed on an airport just yesterday, where they've been flying them off from. The Russians targeted it and took those out. They've lost 2,000 drones, which is half the number that Russia have lost. But then again, their hits are significantly down. They've only hit 114 places of what you would call significance, and most of them, let's face it, have been civilians. What we also have is 23 ammo depots of Ukraine have been smashed to smithereens, including 2 very, very big ones. This is unsustainable. It can't go on. And as many, many people have pointed out, and I'm also very much of this opinion, that there is more NATO troops, Eastern NATO troops, to come. There is a very, very large NATO force in Poland at the moment, and that includes British troops. I am reliably informed, and I'm reliably informed by people who are actually there. I am also reliably informed that the Czech Republic have quite a build-up and have been training for quite some while. So this may be just the overture to an even deadlier battle, which is already costing lots and lots and lots of lives. It is very significant to note that at the beginning of this awful war, where everybody is blaming Russia, had the United States not interfered through the National Endowment for Democracy, piling money into the campaign to get regime change, the democratically elected government of Ukraine would not be overthrown, and we would not be in this position. I hope that everybody will take that on board. If you're not quite sure, please go and have a look at what happened in the Maidan Square in 2014, when Victoria Nuland, who was overseeing the dispersal of these funds, was actually in the Maidan Square handing out bread. Now, the EU intervened when Yanukovych wanted to get the police to disperse these rioters, and this is what happens. The money is never ever given by the National Endowment for Democracy to sitting presidents. It's always given to people in opposition. What then follows are riots, journalists turning against the government, and people being paid off. And let's face it, we all know that Ukraine was the #1 corrupt country in the world before we started supporting them. And the other thing that is really, really heavy on the mind is the involvement of the EU in this, in getting Yanukovych to bring forward the elections. He did so. He agreed to do so. The moment the EU asked him to stand down the police so that the protesters, stroke rioters, nobody would be injured, they then stormed the building and started shooting people, and all over 50 people died in this. And it is quite significant that we remember exactly how this started. Let's also not forget that Poroshenko has no love for the people in the Donbass, and in fact, there is a video out there on the wonderful Anne-Laure Brunel's YouTube video showing Poroshenko saying, "We will make their children hide in saddles," which they've most certainly done. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next time.